Hey guys, welcome to our next little grammar mini lesson. In our last mini lessons, we have been learning about commas, and we've been learning about different places that we need commas, and mostly we've been talking about letters. Just to go back over what we've already learned, you do need commas when you write a letter or a note. You need it in the greeting. Remember, that's like at the very top when you say dear whoever you're writing to. A comma has to go after it. And you also need a comma after the closing of the letter, where you write love or your son or whatever you write. You'll need a comma after or before you sign your name. The next thing we learned about commas was that you need commas in dates. Yep. Remember, when you write a date, you have to put a comma after the day. You write the month, the day, and the year, and a comma has to go after the day in all of the dates. And the next thing we need to learn about commas is that you also are going to need a comma in certain places. If you are going to write a city or a town and a state, you have to put a comma between them. Like Knoxville is a city and it's in Tennessee, so that's a state. You have to put a comma. Myrtle Beach is a city and it's in the state that's called South Carolina, so you have to put a comma between Myrtle Beach and South Carolina. Oneida is a town and Tennessee is the state, so you have to put a comma in between Oneida and Tennessee, because you have to put a comma between the city and the state, or the town and the state. Okay? So let's practice in this one. Let's see if we can find the city or the town and the state, and we're going to put a comma between them. So in this first sentence we have, we are going to Orlando, Florida this summer. Do you see, or did you notice or see something that looks like it could be a city and a state? Yeah, Orlando, Florida. Orlando is the city and Florida is the state, because Florida is a state. And we learned that you have to put a comma in between those. It goes right after Orlando, and it separates the city and the state so people can tell that that's two different places. Alright, what about the next sentence? A lot of famous people live in Hollywood, California. Do you see kind of a city and a state in that one? A place? Yeah, Hollywood, California. Hollywood's the city or the town, and California is the state. So we have to put a comma in between those two. There we go. Alright, and how about the last one? Nashville, Tennessee is not too far from here. Did you see a city and a state or a place? Yeah, Nashville and Tennessee. Those are going to be, Nashville is the city and Tennessee is a state. So you have to put a comma in between the city and the state. Right after the city, the comma goes. And it separates it so people can tell that that's two different things. Alright, so we have learned all of these things because when you write letters, you need commas in certain parts of the letter, and also when you write a letter, you have to put some cities and states and the date. When you write a real letter, that's kind of parts of the letter that it should have. So let's remember what we've learned so far. So we've learned that when you write a letter, you have to put a comma after the greeting, like dear whoever. You have to put a comma after the closing. And we also learned that when you write a letter, this part right here, this is the address of Shelley, because we can see Shelley was the one who wrote the letter. She wrote it to her granny. And this is Shelley's address, and you put your address on a friendly letter so that the person can send it back to you. They can send you a letter back, and they'll know your address of where to send it. So, and we learned that when we have an address with a city and a state, See our city and our state? We have to put a comma in between it. And on this time they abbreviated the state. When you did your abbreviation lesson, it showed you some states and they abbreviated it. All of the states can also be abbreviated. And they are abbreviated with just letters with no period in the states. That's weird, I know. But this one was called Looneyville, California. CA is for California. So we had to put a comma, see the comma, right between the city and the state. And then you're also supposed to put the date on the letter so that people know what day you wrote the letter. And we just learned that you have to put a comma after the day, don't you? So when we write letters, these are some places where commas need to be. After the greeting, after the closing, when you write an address between the city and the state, and when you write a date, you have to put a comma after the day. Alright, so we're going to practice this just a little bit more. I have another friendly letter here, but it's all out of order. We want to kind of put it back the way it needs to be. It's kind of all mixed up. So this looks like the address and the date. Do you remember where the address and the date go? Yep, it goes up here at the top. And then you can have the body. And then this goes over here at the bottom, doesn't it? That's our closing and our signature. Now I've kind of put the letter back in the right order. The address goes up here, then the date right underneath it, then our greeting, the body of the letter, the closing of the letter, and your signature. And remember about where commas need to go in that letter. Remember, after the greeting, after the closing. When you write the address, you need a comma between the city and the state. This is Greenville, South Carolina. SC stands for South Carolina. And then after the day in the date. And look, I even abbreviated January, didn't I? Good. Alright, so do you think you're ready to show me what you've learned about commas and letters? Okay, so your assignment is going to be some boom cards, and it's going to be different letters, and you're supposed to pick the right one to go in the letter depending on where the comma is at. So remember where commas go in the letters, and remember where the parts of the letter are, because you're going to have to drag it to the right spot in the letter, okay? Alright, good luck guys!